What if an ancient prophecy, one that's been guarded for centuries, is now being interpreted to mean that next month, November 2025, is the beginning of the end, or a new beginning? The Hopi people foresaw a great purification that would cleanse the earth. With volcanoes awakening and the sun unleashing its fury, you have to wonder, are we watching an ancient warning play out in real time? For over 1,000 years, high in the arid mesas of the American Southwest, the Hopi people have maintained a sacred duty. They aren't just keepers of a culture, but guardians of a deep prophetic tradition that speaks of cosmic cycles, our responsibilities, and the destiny of the planet. At the heart of it all is the story of the four worlds. Hopi tradition teaches that we've already lived through 3 great ages, and each one ended in a cataclysm because humanity lost its way. The first world was destroyed by fire, the second by ice, and the third by a great flood. We're now living in the 4th world, and the prophecies have long warned that this age, too, will meet its end. This time, the final cleansing is supposed to come by fire. But this isn't just a simple apocalypse story. It's a narrative of purification, a painful but necessary reset. And this is where it gets intense. A wave of modern interpretations, spreading like wildfire online, points to a very specific and very near time frame, November 2025. These theories talk about a black month of fire, where the signs will become undeniable. However, it's critical to separate these modern theories from the source. Hopi elders themselves have not named a specific date. Their prophecies are about our choices, not a fixed timeline. So why has this idea of November 2025 captured so much attention? The convergence of real-world events and prophetic signs has led many to believe this ancient timeline is hitting its climax. To understand the fire that might be coming, we first have to look at the fire that's already here. One of the most chilling and well-known Hopi prophecies speaks of a gourd of ashes. The elders said this gourd would be dropped from the sky, boil the oceans, and burn the land, leaving nothing to grow for years. Then, in 1945, not far from Hopi lands, the first atomic bomb was tested. Soon after, gourds of ashes fell on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. For many, this was the undeniable fulfillment of that sacred warning. It was the arrival of the red fire, the fire of war. Hopi prophecy also warned the world would be shaken 3 times, which many interpret as 2 world wars, with a third, more spiritual and destructive conflict yet to come. The atomic bomb was a turning point. It proved humanity could now wield the fire of the gods, the power to cause destruction on a global scale. This interpretation of the gourd of ashes set a precedent. If the prophecies were right about this, what else were they right about? The warnings didn't stop there. Modern interpretations point to other signs they believe have come true. Roads in the sky are seen as airplanes, horseless wagons on black ribbons, are cars on highways, and a giant spider's web across the land sounds an awful lot like telephone lines or even today's World Wide Web. While these exact phrases are often modern extrapolations and not found in the earliest documented prophecies, they build a compelling case for the terrifying accuracy of the Hopi vision. Hopi prophecies warn that the great purification will be announced by the earth itself, with a mighty breath of wind and a shaking of the land. For decades, this sounded like a distant, abstract warning. Today, it reads like a daily headline. All around the globe, volcanic activity is a growing concern. We've seen dramatic eruptions everywhere, from Iceland to Indonesia. And while the total number of eruptions may not be increasing geologically. Some scientific studies suggest melting glaciers and rising sea levels could be changing the pressure on tectonic plates, potentially influencing volcanic activity. The Hopi never used words like tectonic plates, but they did warn that our disrespect for the Earth would cause it to react violently. As volcanoes like Popocatépetl in Mexico and Shiveluch in Russia continue to erupt, their warnings feel incredibly current. These aren't just isolated events. Interpreters see them as symptoms of a restless planet, the Earth's fever breaking just as the elders foretold. The prophecy speaks of this fire from within as a cleansing agent that will reshape the land. As ancient volcanoes show new signs of life, we have to ask, has the great shaking already begun? The connections between ancient warnings and modern events are getting pretty hard to ignore. But what do you think? Are these just coincidences, or are we witnessing a timeline unfold? Let us know in the comments. And if you're finding this as fascinating as we are, hit that subscribe button, because the next fire we're talking about comes from the heavens. The prophecy doesn't just talk about fire from below. It also warns of disturbances in the heavens and fire raining down. This is where another modern interpretation comes in, connecting those warnings to something scientists are watching very closely right now. Solar Cycle 25. Here's the deal. We're in Solar Cycle 25, which is basically the sun's 11-year cycle of activity. Initially, NASA and NOAA scientists predicted this cycle would be pretty mellow. They were wrong. The sun has been far more active than anyone anticipated, and the peak of this activity is now forecast for around mid-2025. A powerful, Earth-directed solar flare could trigger a catastrophic geomagnetic storm. An event like that could fry our satellites, collapse power grids, and plunge our world into a sudden technological dark age. This scenario is a chilling parallel to another part of the prophecy, the warning against depending on the spider's web of technology. The Hopi saw this web as a potential trap that would disconnect us from the natural world. A massive solar storm is exactly the kind of event that could spring that trap, turning our greatest strength into our most critical weakness. The timing of this unusually active solar cycle, peaking in 2025, is what makes this interpretation so compelling to many. It feels like a convergence, a pincer movement of cosmic and earthly forces, all aligning. But maybe the most mysterious fire in Hopi prophecy isn't red, but black. Elders spoke of a black fire, a time of spiritual decay and confusion, where humanity loses its connection to the Creator. It's not a literal fire, but a societal collapse of morality, a world consumed by greed and division. It's a state the Hopi have a word for, Koyaanisqatsi, a life out of balance. Looking at our world, with its deep divisions and digital alienation, many would say the age of the Black Fire is already here. Out of that darkness, the prophecy says a final sign will appear, the coming of the blue star Kachina. As the story goes, a celestial spirit known as the Sakwasohu, or blue star, will appear in the heavens. When it does, the fifth world will emerge. Author Frank Waters wrote that the final sign would be a dwelling place in the heavens that shall fall with a great crash. It will appear as a blue star. Interpretations of what this could be vary wildly, from a comet to a supernova. Now, we have to be clear here. The authenticity of the blue star Kachina story is debated. Some researchers, and even some Hopi, believe it might be a more modern edition, influenced by non-Hopi sources, and not part of the original ancient traditions. But regardless of its origin, The story holds immense symbolic power. It represents a final celestial trigger, the last domino to fall before the old world ends and the path to the new one opens. So, after all this, the viral theories about November 2025, the shaking earth, the angry sun, are we just looking at an unavoidable doomsday? According to the Hopi themselves, the answer is a resounding no. Their prophecies were never meant as threats. They're invitations. They are warnings, yes, but they are also messages of profound hope. It all comes down to the famous Hopi Prophecy rock, which depicts two paths for humanity. One path shows people with their heads disconnected from their bodies, chasing materialism, and that path crumbles into nothing. The other path is simpler. It shows a life of harmony with the earth, planting corn and living with a peaceful heart. That path goes on forever. The Great Purification isn't about punishment. It's about forcing a choice. The fire is meant to burn away imbalance and greed, both in the world and in ourselves. For those who are at peace in their hearts, the prophecies promise survival and renewal. The ultimate goal is the fifth world, a new age of peace and brotherhood. So, the real question the Hopi prophecy poses isn't, will the world end? But which world will we choose to build from the ashes? The fire is both around us and within us. What emerges from the flames will be determined by what we decide to remember, protect, and honor. The Hopi prophecies ultimately leave us with more questions than answers. What do you believe the fire of purification truly represents? Share your interpretation in the comments. And if you want to keep exploring the world's greatest mysteries, make sure to subscribe and check out our next video on prophecies that have already come true.
This book is your beginner's guide to understanding Scripture. Find peace, build relationships, and discover purpose in today's world. Ready to decode the Bible? Find Bible Decoded available on Amazon now.
If this content blesses you and you'd like to support our mission, you can buy me a coffee or give a super thanks. Every contribution helps us create more content to inspire and uplift others. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on my future videos.